Hello, this is Robert from The Cure. You're watching MTV. It's Cure Night. I hope you enjoy it.
Hello, welcome to a very special edition of MTV New, because I'm joined by Robert Smith, who you'll all recognise from The Cure. Hello, Robert.
Hello.
How are you today?
Very well, thank you. Perky and interesting, I hope.
Good. Glad to hear it. What have you had to interrupt from your timetable to come and talk to us today?
Sleep. Deep sleep. It is. It's too early in the day. It's mid-afternoon. I would normally just be kind of like rising up out of the depths at this time of day.
I think it's quite luxurious to have a job where you can get up when everybody else is already...
The only reason I do it.
You're a big sleeper then.
I don't sleep that long, but I like the luxury of being able to choose when I sleep. More importantly, when I wake up. That's the real luxury of what I do. It's kind of partly true. There's like an undercurrent of truth to that, because when I was young, I used to think through all these various jobs that would entail me not having to get up. I suppose night worker was like the obvious one, but I always wanted the freedom to be able to work when I wanted to. I never thought I'd get that freedom, but it was a nice dream. So.
And does this correspond to the other members in the band? Are you all on the same? Have you all synchronised your watches?
No, it's weird. We all used to be working at the same hours. We all used to work at night and go to bed in the morning. But two of them have got children now, and the other two have kind of grown up, I suppose. I don't know. The other four are really regular. Like go to bed at 10 at night and sort of get up at 6 in the morning. I don't know what they do actually. But they conform to my hours when we're working. Bitterly though, they really moan and I have to work this late. But for me, I've always worked at night ever since I very first started with the group. We've done every single album at night.
So we have a look and a listen at and to something that is back from the early days. Let's have a look at the video for Boys Don't Cry. This is the most recent record to come from The Cure, and it's the greatest hits compilation. There are 2 new tracks on there, but 16 of them are, of course, from the last 25 years. How on earth did you choose singles to go into a compilation at this stage?
It was much easier than you'd think. There's been 31 singles from beginning to now, and I just had to pick the ones that I felt were the greatest hits. I tried to be very honest about I picked the most commercially successful ones in the main, but I had to kind of deviate a bit from that to include some of the earlier ones that didn't do very well and some of the late ones that didn't do very well. So, but 12 of the 16 pretty much picked themselves. The band sat down and we all wrote down a list of what we thought were the best, the top 10, and we all pretty much had the same top 10. I think an unnamed member of the band had a very weird top 10. I think they were being weird on purpose. And then the final 4 were just really my choice of 2 early singles, my choice of 2 later singles. That probably, if it was just commercial success, it would have been all from the same kind of 7 or 8 year period, which I thought would have made it pretty redundant as this kind of an overview of the band. Because the reason the early singles didn't do well was because no one really knew who we were, and the reason the later ones didn't do that well was because people did. But the bottom line for me was, in a year's time, the contention over what's on there and what isn't is really kind of forgotten, and it's more a case of when you put it on, what does it sound like? So I wanted to make it a kind of a rounded experience.
Did that help decide what definitely wouldn't go on there?
Yeah.
I mean, I imagine there are tracks now that you must listen to and think, oh, what on earth did I make that for?
Well, there aren't that many that came out as singles, because I probably put a lot of thought into why what they were supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be getting played on the radio. That's like the main aim of a single. But there were 1 or 2 of my favourite Cure singles that aren't on there, like Charlotte Sometimes isn't on there, and A Letter to Elise. And the reason they're not on is because I felt they took the whole thing down a bit. They were kind of like the more extraordinary Cure singles. I think this singles collection reflects the ones that kind of people know. I thought it would be pretty stupid to have an eclectic collection of greatest hits, because it should be called something else. I'm infuriated when people go, it's the best of. And I think it's so far from being the best of The Cure.
No, you haven't called it the best of.
No.
You would have done if that's what it was.
Well, the best of The Cure would have contained probably 7 8-minute tracks for me. It would have been, that's the best of The Cure. The singles is like something that we've done, and it's been an important part of what we've done, but it isn't really at the heart of the group for me.
Let's have a look at one of those catchy tunes, another single from The Cure. I'd just like to talk about the Greatest Hits compilation again, because it's a double CD as an unlimited edition. You went and recorded all those tracks in acoustic versions. How did that idea come about?
Well, we realised very early on when this project was suggested to us by the record company, it's the very first time it's ever happened, because it really wasn't what we would have wanted to do next. And we figured that the average Cure fan isn't really going to be overexcited by a compilation. Regardless of the fact that it's got a couple of new songs on it, most of them are going to have pretty much everything on there. And so we wanted to make it a bit more exciting for us as well, really. And I wanted to make it something I'd be proud of, rather than just banging out a Greatest Hits album. Even though I think it's really good, I thought if we did something special, it would make it, the whole thing just, more worthwhile. And so we got the record companies to agree to a free CD, which in itself was a milestone, and then we had to think what we were going to put on it. So, but there was only really three genuine ideas. One was just doing remixes, which seemed a bit kind of dull because it would be other people. The second was us doing remixes, which is slightly more interesting. The third was reinterpreting the songs acoustically. And seeing as that's how we pretty much figure new songs out anyway, we thought it would be interesting for fans to get that insight. And I'm glad we chose that option, because I think it's quite a naive hour, but it's got a certain charm to it, I think.
I get the impression when anyone hears a Cure song, they remember a time and a place and an era. Do they do the same thing for you?
I'd like to say they do. There are a few on there that I find it quite difficult to remember the time and the place, to be honest. Some of the early 80s stuff is a little bit hazy. But generally speaking, yeah, they do. It's funny that I actually think of my life more than I'd like to, as in kind of lumps, which are usually referred to by the pornography part, or the disintegration part. So I kind of compartmentalise what I've done with regards to album titles, which I suppose is the same. I mean, everyone does it. I think you just think of like other landmark events, and for me, when we bring an album out, I've usually spent a lot of time, invested a lot of kind of energy and passion into it, and so it becomes like a landmark event for me. The singles themselves, I mean, each one, I kind of remember sort of funny things about doing them. But I suppose I'm less emotionally attached to the singles than I am to some of the other Cure songs. Like album tracks probably bring back much stronger memories. Usually it's because if a song's got a certain depth of emotion and I've sung it on stage in that a number of times, I just sort of like feel the song. I mean, we've made 3 live albums over the last 20 or so years. Well, that's 3 too many for some critics. But I think the versions on the live albums are generally speaking are better than the studio versions. And I wish we'd done a live album last year, actually, because I felt the band played better last year than it has done for a decade. But we were sort of cowed a little bit by it. The fact is, there's a bootleg of every show that we've ever done, pretty much. So I suppose there's no real need to make a live album. But I would have liked to have picked some of the really good performances, and I think that's why the songs, they're kind of still alive for me. Some of the old songs. Robert,
let's talk for a moment about videos. Have you actually seen any of them recently? Are there something that you come across, Cure videos?
I had to go through all of them to compile the DVD and the VHS for this Hits project as well. In fact, the videos make me think more about time passing than just listening to the singles. I think because we've performed most of the singles over the years on and off, so that's kind of kept them alive. The videos are particular moments in time, and I can see myself kind of like growing up. I was going to say growing old, but it makes me kind of sort of like stop and think, oh, just for a second. So
it must be weird.
Some of the earlier ones, I mean, they were good fun to do, but I think, we always worked with Tim Pope, like right the way through, but pretty much from a few years in for about a 15-year period, and I think some of them he was dragging out too much that wasn't there, but overall they're really good. I'm really proud of what we did with Tim. The early Cure videos.
That's nice to hear, because a lot of artists kind of say, oh no, I really wouldn't do that again, or it was a big mistake, or can't bear to see such and such.
I always find it impossible to understand, because if you had the benefit of hindsight and went and redid something, obviously you'd be insane to do it the same, because you'd want a different experience anyway, and if you didn't know any better, you'd probably do it this. You know what I mean? The other thing is making mistakes, and is, you know, it's a cliche, but it's true. It's all part of why the next thing you do is hopefully better, because like you're dissatisfied with certain elements of what you've just done. And it's the same with videos. I mean, there's one or two videos the early videos that we did, which I thought were just perfect at the time, and I still think are really good. Like In Between Days is one. It's because it just captures the spirit of the band and the song perfectly. There are others. I'm thinking of Let's Go to Bed, I suppose, where I'm really hamming it up, you know, and I wasn't like that at all. I was kind of like acting, I was pretending, and those are the videos that I feel a bit uncomfortable about, because I can kind of see through it, as I'm sure everyone else can, but it just, you know, there's something about it, I think, oh, I wish I hadn't been quite so sort of cheesy in that way.
There seems to be a naivety to them, and it always looks as if the band are having fun, which I think is quite nice.
We are good actors.
I got the impression watching them, and do correct me if I'm wrong, but they seem to fall into two categories. One set seemed to be the performance videos, very much with the band and maybe some visual effects.
The cheap one.
Okay, well maybe you're going to be able to tell me the reasons then. And the others seem to be the kind of, let's all dress up and have a party, and they're almost the freak show with the demonic side.
The cheaper ones. Yeah. There are two, yeah. I mean, we try and marry the idea of behind the video to the song. I mean, usually what's happened, particularly when I've worked with Tim, is that I'll give him some reference points and of other films, usually like visual reference points, and an idea of what the song is communicating, what I see in my head when I kind of listen to it, and then he takes it away, and that's how we used to work. But and I think most of them have worked because they still kind of like help the song. I mean, there are a lot of videos which I think you watch and it's just someone trying to sell themselves, and they could be singing anything. There's sort of, you know, there are too many videos made like that actually. So we always tried to do something that was kind of like a story that would work with the song. But it's true, some of them are more serious. They kind of we're trying to get a little bit more of the gravitas of the band into the videos. But I think the best videos are actually the ones where we're less self-conscious and we just kind of like think, you know,
let's go for it.
For the day, yeah, let's just like be fools. And they are more enjoyable to watch. I think whenever we try and be too kind of like po-faced in front of the camera, it comes across as like terribly dull.
Contrived. Let's have a look at one that does seem to be very much everybody having a bit of a free-for-all. Wrong Number, would you agree?
That was one of the strangest videos that we've ever made, I think, Wrong Number, yeah.
Let's take a look at it. I'm still here with Robert Smith, who was about to burp.
No, I did it very discreetly. There's only one person as of you.
I noticed, I'm sitting next to you. One thing that always gets talked about to do with you and The Cure is your image. And looking back, I think you're actually one of the most consistent artists as far as image is concerned. Because most people change and you haven't. No,
I've shaved my head 3 times. You know, it's one of those things. I sort of find it amusing would be too strong a word, but at this kind of almost obsession with the idea of people changing. You know, there are certain bands and artists who reinvent themselves. That's the phrase I'm looking for. And I think, but they don't. It's just them, but they just got a different haircut. You know, I suppose I don't see it in the same way as like a lot of other people do. For me, I mean, it seems paradoxical that I would say that it's not kind of unimportant, because I've got, you know, over the years, there's a particular image that I've got that kind of defines the band. You know, so for me to say it's not that important would seem initially strange. But if I looked any other way, I'd still look like me, except I'd just be looking slightly different. You know what I mean? I mean, if I look in the mirror, I just see me. I either wear a lot of makeup or no makeup. I'm still seeing me. My hair's either like up or down, or I've shaved my head. I still see me. And when I look at other people, I sort of see them. It doesn't matter if someone's wearing a hat or sunglasses. So I don't know. To me, it's. I've always looked in a certain way. I've always put on makeup as a sort of in a theatrical way, of just like to confront people. I feel it's all part of like psychological as well. I kind of like it's like putting war paint on. I go out and I do something that allows me to. I mean, I'd feel very uncomfortable doing this, for example, if I wasn't wearing makeup, and yet I'd still internally I'd feel the same. But I kind of know that, you know, I would have this picture in my head of like being sort of quieter. Like if I'm at home and I'm not kind of done up, then I would never talk like this.
I was going to say, it's almost like wearing a mask and being able to become that person.
It's enhancing what's already there. But I think if I was to kind of like get a Mohican, you know, and dye it blue, and have a tattoo put on my chin, it would be a complete reinvention of myself into what though? You know, it'd be Robert Smith with a blue Mohican and a tattoo machine. So for me, that whole idea of reinvention, it's, you know, it goes on inside you. I mean, fair enough if it's reflected and you have a complete change of like look and you know. But I think it's too often it's cynical. You know, the reasons for a reinvention are because your record sales are flagging. For me, I've just always dressed and looked how I feel myself. I mean, I'm still wearing my pyjamas. You can't get more undressed and comfortable than that.
We will still be here after the break with Robert Smith talking about The Cure, so do stay tuned. There's a lot of speculation flying around, or there has been, that Blood Flowers was going to be the final Cure LP, and this greatest hits is the swan of the Cure career. It's not that black and white. Do you want to tell us a bit about?
I mean, the speculation about Blood Flowers being the last Cure album was generated by me, really, because I wanted everyone to believe that, and most importantly, the band. And I did think it would be, and it still possibly could be, because we haven't done anything else since. I'm hoping that we will. I'm hoping that Blood Flowers isn't the last Cure studio album. But until we make another one, I'm all right if it is, because it was a good way to finish. I wanted to finish with an album that people would think they're making their best music and they stop. I just thought it would be a cool way to stop the band. But in the process of playing the live shows last year, I got really enthusiastic about The Cure again, and I loved it. And by the time we got to the end of the year, I wanted to keep doing it. So, in a strange way, I'm slightly worried that some of that feeling may have been because I felt everything we were doing was for the last time. So everything was very poignant, and there was a lot of kind of emotion around what we were doing. But I suspect it's just because it focused everyone's minds on it, and we just played really well, and the atmosphere in the band got really good because we were enjoying what we were doing on stage, and that's sort of like the key to a good tour, really. The greatest hits thing, for me, it's not really the right time. I mean, I come from a generation that believes that the greatest hits should be something that happens after a decent enough time of mourning when the band's kind of ended. So even if Blood Flowers is the last thing, greatest hits should have waited, really. But I think record companies are nervous, you know, like they probably think that in a year's time, if we haven't done anything, that the name won't be as high profile, so they'll have missed out on the sales opportunity. I mean, it's so crass the way things are done nowadays that everything's driven by commercial concern. So I thought I'd rather go along with it and get it done how I would want it done. I could get to pick the track listing and get it packaged right and do the acoustic CD. So at least it's something that I can look back on fondly. I thought if I opt out, it'll be a greatest hits in name only, you know, because it just won't be the right thing. No, it's sort of got in the way. It's made it a little bit awkward to do something new because kind of sets us. It's like 2 steps forward with Blood Flowers and 1 step back with the greatest hits. But we will be going into the studio shortly to try and do something else. Ah.
You say that you're going into the studio with the band. There's also rumour that you'll be going into the studio by yourself. So is there a solo project possibly on the horizon?
Well, going into the studio is a bit of a... It's not really the same deal if I'm doing things on... Because I've been doing my own album for about 18 months now. I keep having to put it on hold for The Cure doing stuff. Because I'm doing it all into a computer and I'm doing it all at home and I'm doing it on my own. So it's even more the process of making it is the point. Because I never know. With The Cure, we do demos and stuff, and I always know there is going to be one point in time when we do a performance and that's it, and that's going to be the definitive performance. Doing something on your own, every time you're doing something, it's for real. So it's actually more satisfying in a funny way. I miss the interaction that I have with the band, because it does add a lot, that dynamic. But I gain through not having to coerce them into staying up past midnight, being able to work when I want and do things without resorting to like sort of cheap man management techniques.
Does the stuff that you're creating on your own sound very different? It can't do, surely, because so much of The Cure is basically Robert Smith.
Yeah, but it's a band when I write stuff for the band, it's a particular... I know it's going to work in a particular way, and it's very structured. And there's this verse, chorus, you know, there's bridges and middle eights and stuff. But essentially, it's vocal-led music. They're songs that I do with The Cure, and I think that's what we do best. And I think that's probably what I do best in that context. But over the years, I've written stuff that I've kind of sidelined because it hasn't worked when we've demoed it. But I still think there's good ideas in there, and they're the songs that I've sort of dug out and I've been working on, and they're sort of pieces. I know it's horribly pretentious, but they don't. Songs kind of resolve, you know, and they have like structures, and they're very pleasing. There's certain, you know, there's traditional kind of ways of like making a song work. Writing a piece of music is much more kind of like film music, atmospheric music that can just like keep progressing. It doesn't have to resolve. It is totally different. It does sound really different, believe it or not. It's like some of them I sing on, the ones I sing on, people will think, I know that voice, you know. Well, some people will think I know that voice. The ones that I don't sing on, you would have no idea that I was doing it.
Wow.
Honest.
Let's pretend for a moment that Blood Flowers was the last thing we were going to hear from The Cure. What would be? It's horrible. We'll cry later. But what would be your last words? What would you actually want to be remembered by?
I mean, I've been really pleased with what The Cure has done over the years. I think there have been 5 distinct bands called The Cure. A Cure fan, I think, appreciates, I suppose, more than the casual observer, how important the band lineup is to the sound and to what we do. But I would never think I still wouldn't think there's one bit which is kind of better than all the rest, because at the time of doing it, like when we did 17 Seconds, our second album in 1980, I was entranced by it, and I thought, and that was it for me. It was like I thought, I don't care if I never make another record. So each time I do it, I feel like that, and I felt that with Blood Flowers. Except it's obviously much more likely now that The Cure's going to finish. I sort of feel that I mean, I should really give up predicting what The Cure's going to do, when it's going to end and stuff, because I think it's sort of taken its own life. I think it will just stop when it stops. I don't think it's really. I mean, I don't think it can continue on without me, but I think all these conceptual reasons I have for finishing the band, I should forget about, really. And
it's actually something that preoccupies you, that you think about.
It has done. It does in short bursts. Before we do something, I sort of think about. I don't think about why I'm doing it, because I do it for other reasons. You know, the much sort of like deeper reasons that are just about how I feel about the world. But at that point, I always think, well, why am I doing it with a band called The Cure? And I suppose through a period in the late 90s, I started to question whether that was particularly relevant to me. Actually, not to the wider world, but just whether I felt I'd get more satisfaction through doing it either within the context of another band or just doing it on my own. And I've kind of arrived at the conclusion that I can do both, which is something it seems weird, but I've never felt the two could coexist before now. But I could do something on my own and do something with The Cure, so that's what I should be doing in the future.
It's a new episode.
Yeah, it is.
Well, we look forward to it. Robert Smith, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure.